Hello there, I'm back. Had to quickly stop because my kitten making chaos here. So what am I doing? What happened here? Why I didn't start this?
Welcome to Workers and
Okay, I did.
Transport. Whether workers were employed for the pyramid construction or at the quarries, the government supplied food and housing. Skilled architects and engineers were employed year round. Archaeological research shows that no food was stored or prepared on site. While
Okay,
some quarries were close to the Nile, others were located across the desert and required long.
here is crowded.
Whenever possible, blocks were toppled from a higher elevation onto the sled. During flood season, the Nile was at its largest and deepest, which allowed the transportation of the heaviest and biggest loads. The Uwadi el-Jarf papyri detail a limestone load. Stone cargo generally weighed 15 tons per boat. River
So we're done.
transportation was the most efficient way to ferry stone blocks between the quarry and the construction site. Blocks were transported by flotillas of several types of boats. The most detailed illustration of transport by river is a relief of Queen Hatshepsut's barge with an accompanying flotilla.
Okay, so character change. Um, uh, this one. Okay, so back to tours. And we're moving here. So this is first with this character I have to go for, if I'm right about this. If not, okay, then I just did this for nothing. So let's see. So why do I have to go there?
Welcome to Agriculture and Seasons.
Woohoo! I don't even see where I'm supposed to go.
While crops were cultivated in different oases around the desert, most of the arable lands were near the Nile. Two types of cereal grain were cultivated. The Ptolemaic era created an agricultural revolution with the introduction of advanced agricultural techniques and new grain types such as rice, durum wheat, and pearl millet. The resulting agricultural mass production greatly increased the economy of ancient Egypt. It also prompted the development of storage and transportation, allowing long-distance trade. Both bread and beer rations were part of a system of barter payment. The state used those goods to pay wages for those who worked in the quarries and at the construction sites. Beer was so important to ancient Egyptians, they had a goddess of beer brewing, Tenenet.
Oh,
Tenenet is seen in many paintings and sculptures with beer, and women are
okay.
depicted as the prime. In order to increase agricultural production, fertile land was divided into plots and large agricultural villages were encouraged. The state and temples were the biggest landowners. Depending on the region, fertile land was managed by civil servants or rented to individuals. Ancient Egyptians relied on rudimentary tools for land cultivation. Soil was broken down with hoes, and wing plows were used to make furrows. The three seasons known as Akhet Peret, and Shemu corresponded to a specific phase of the agricultural process and the river's natural changes.
3 seasons.
Akhet was the time of the flood, beginning with the appearance of the star Sirius in July. Peret was the time when lands were cultivated, plowed, and sown. This fell between October and November. Shemu ran from May to September and was when harvesting and taxation began. The pharaoh's duty was to uphold order against chaos and provide for his people. Priests and local governors also wanted to appear as protectors of the people. However, any variation in the Nile's seasons could cause water shortages. This had devastating consequences on wheat and barley crops. The pharaoh, administrators, and priests. The story begins with the pharaoh worried for his people. The Nile hasn't flooded in years, and his people are starving. In search of the origins of the flooding, Djoser seeks out Khnum, the protector god of the region and the source of the drought.
Okay, so
Djoser gives the god offerings and orders his priests to restore the temple of Khnum. These offerings please the god, and the floods are restored. This story was intended to highlight the importance of the deity in everyone's daily lives, while also demonstrating the crucial role that the priests and the king played in feeding and protecting the people of Egypt.
nine stations. So this is second.
Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Cultivation. The new grain types of the Ptolemaic period required a great deal of water. Farmers needed to ensure they had effective, consistent irrigation. The Nile's rising and receding waters. Later, a sakya, or water wheel, was invented. The sakya needed animals to turn the wheel. The threshing process separated the grain from its husk. Workers would spread the ears on clean ground. Oxen. Winnowing was the stage where workers used wooden scoops to throw ears in the air. Transporting large amounts of grain required ships equipped to carry heavy loads. These goods were moved during the Nile's flooding season, when the river was deep enough for large ships. The transports stopped at checkpoints to accommodate customs and police. Having reached Alexandria's inner harbor, the wheat was unloaded under the supervision of a civil servant in charge of wheat management. Portions were distributed to Alexandria. Grain storage facilities were located across all of Egypt. Temples and institutions had large silos, while individual houses had storage sheds. In some houses, arched cellars were built into the foundations. These watertight chambers were accessible from the ground floor through a trapdoor. Royal granaries acted as the storehouse and distribution centers, and managed state payments to... When the grain was... The sieves used by ancient Egyptians were unable to filter out sand and stones. Grit often passed into the flour, causing long-term tooth abrasions among all classes of Egyptians.
Okay. Why I finished some of those? Oh, I finished some. Okay, so haha. Where do we go? Where do we go?
Welcome to Domesticated Animals of Ancient Egypt. Agriculture and domesticated livestock were introduced 6,000 years ago. Archaeologists have found traces of cattle, donkeys, pigs, and dogs. Dromedary are thought to have been introduced during the Persian invasion. Pets were deeply cherished in ancient Egypt. Many illustrations of children often include a pet in the depiction. One of ancient Egypt's most iconic animals, the cat, wasn't adopted into their daily life until the Middle Kingdom. Since they were so highly capable of killing snakes and rodents, cats were present throughout every period. However, they only became pets sometime during the Middle Kingdom. Prince Thutmose. The earliest reference to dogs dates back to 5000 BCE. They were popular pets as they helped hunters and protected herds. They were closely linked to Anubis, the jackal-headed god. Baboons, monkeys, and even falcons were tamed as pets. Each was mummified and buried with as much ceremony as any family member.
Okay, one more. And we're changing then.
Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Medicine. Evidence of advanced medical procedures have been found on Another similar document, the Ebers Medical Papyrus, is over 20 meters. Remedies were considered as medicine and carried by doctors and priests. Village doctors often had another job alongside their medical duties and the preparation of medicines. A cure for blindness was made of fermented honey, ochre, and coal. The science behind it was that honey functioned as an antiseptic and antibacterial, while ochre would reduce the swelling. All of their knowledge did not always suffice. Ramses II died of an infection caused by an abscessed tooth.
Okay, let's change. Mm. That I used already. Okay, let's see. Okay, where are we? Waiting, waiting.
Welcome to Leather and Linen in Ancient Egypt. Tanning, a process which dates from prehistoric times, was present although not highly valued in Egypt due to the heat. Leather was reserved mainly for things such as sandals, leather bags, dagger sheaths, quivers, and other similar items. Leopard hides, unlike regular leather, were highly valued and usually worn by priests. Valued for its coolness and freshness in hot weather, linen was the fiber most commonly used for fabrics and textiles. It was produced from flax, which was plentiful in Egypt. Fibers were usually dyed before weaving. While color was used in the production of textiles, dyes weren't commonly used for clothing, and most Egyptians wore white. The color represented spiritual. Various shades were achieved using woad, a dye produced from the leaves of Isotis tinctoria. The plant was cultivated for this purpose within the Nile Delta and allowed for the creation of various colors. For example, this area's style is strongly influenced by the dye baths and tanneries of modern-day Fes in Morocco. This helped Ubisoft envision what such locations might have been like in ancient Egypt. While this tannery is within the city walls, back then they were often found outside the city boundaries. The tanner's trade was considered off-putting by the Greeks, as all these operations resulted in noxious smells.
Okay, back. Okay, there's number 4. Did you see that?
Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Fashions. what life was like for ancient Egyptians presents many differences, and yet also jewelry was a popular item among ancient Egyptians of all social standings. The jewelry of the elite was made from. Though idealized, tomb paintings are a catalog. The fabric of ancient Egyptian clothing was almost entirely made from various grades of linen. Cosmetics, including concoctions to prevent body odor and bad breath, were an integral part of everyday life for Egyptians. Egyptians believed kohl had magical powers, wearing it as black eyeliner to protect their eyes from the sun and to prevent eye infections from particles in the flooded Nile River. A special green kohl, made from ground women and teenage girls wore their hair long and often braided. Wealthier women included carved combs or hair. Wigs were very popular, used for special occasions. Prepubescent children generally had their heads shaved. Young girls kept some strands intact, while young boys had a braid worn on the side.
Okay. And after I finish this one, we're changing character again. And I think that's the last one.
Welcome to Evolution of Pottery in Ancient Egypt. Excavations all over Egypt have uncovered enormous quantities of pottery vessels of all shapes and sizes. The production of pottery was mainly confined to the outskirts of settlement.
Okay. So, I figured how to take photos, and now I'm unstoppable.
Due to the materials required and to
Photographer
keep the kiln smoke away from inhabited
will
spaces.
always find a way to.
Pottery was
that.
essential to ancient Egyptians' daily lives. Early pots were made from pinched or coiled clay. The potter's wheel was utilized during the Old Kingdom. Quartzite particles, which created the potsherds, could be found anywhere and were the most common canvas for writing or drawing, in comparison to the more expensive papyrus sheets. Named after their Greek description, ostraca contained daily life records, letters, or could be drawn upon. Artists drew sketches for temples and tombs, or simply for leisure.
Okay. New character. Okay, let me check something. While I'm waiting. Okay.
Welcome to the Egyptian household. In pre-Greco-Roman culture, women were considered equal to men in many matters. Certain professions were open only to women, such as weaving or professional mourning, while others were available to both genders, including working
Professional
as servants for
mourning.
the rich households. Social status did have an impact, though. The homes were generally composed of 3 rooms. First, there was the entrance, furnished with a small bench of brick. Marriages were a social contract rather than a religious construct. Family was vitally important to ancient Egyptians, and children were considered a blessing from the gods. The father, mother, and their children were the nucleus of the family, and cohabitation sometimes extended to mothers-in-law, sisters, aunts, and sisters-in-law.
Oh my. So many women in one house. I can imagine chaos.
Status and wealth played a large role in the style and size of ancient Egyptian homes.
Each woman wants
Commoners'
to have
houses
things
were
her
built with
way,
sun-baked
so
mud bricks.
you can imagine.
Town officials and the rich lived in mansions with numerous rooms that were luxuriously decorated. Only temples and tombs meant to last for all eternity. Funeral stone inscriptions focused on the main member of a household. Encircling this person would then be a spouse, parents, and children, possibly even siblings. These stones were so structured because there were no surnames in ancient Egyptian culture. Parents and children were a sort of family tree, which allowed for the identification of the deceased.
Okay. No.
Welcome to bread and beer. While the Mesopotamians invented beer, including using a straw to avoid the sediments and herbs, ancient Egyptians perfected the brewing method. Beer was the popular drink of ceremonies and festivals. The Festival of Drunkenness was even dedicated to it.
Oh my.
Recipes for beer varied over time and depended on... Once baked, bread would be crumbled into the brew to start the fermentation process. Adding grain enzymes would break down the starches, turning... Once ready, the bread and grain mixture was compressed and then strained through a sieve with water into the mix of... Once smooth, while food was prepared on the floor until the Middle Kingdom, when cooked. Dough was kneaded by hand or foot. Ancient Egyptians always had to fight off the omnipresent sand particles that were blown towards them. Despite their best efforts, sand regularly made its way into their food. Additionally, particles from the grain-grinding stone tools and ovens they used also contributed to attrition and prematurely worn teeth. The team tried to portray this through toothache animations and commoners sweeping sand off.
Okay. Shall we change one more? What's that?
Welcome to Wine in Ancient Egypt. When the god Horus lost his eye in a war with Seth, the ancient... A millennia-old tradition. Grape cultivation and wine production was regimented in the way typical of ancient Egyptian bureaucracy. Egyptians kept care... Documentation shows that only certain craftsfolk were allowed to provide the containers required to store and transport wine. Egyptians had different kinds of wines, most of which ranged in quality from good to very good. The sweet shadé, to which honey had been added. The soft nejem, obtained by drying the grapes in the sun. The ma, reserved for religious ceremonies. And finally there was the peyor, the mediocre-rated wine, resulting from the second pressing of grapes and reserved for a less discerning palate.
Okay. So this is the last one. Cats were sacred beings.
Welcome to Oil in Ancient Egypt.
Oil.
Castor, sesame, and moringa were the source of the most common oils in ancient Egypt. Oil was used for various purposes: cosmetics, medical treatments, nutrition, perfume, athletic. Ancient Egyptians originally used castor oil in wick lamps, but also for cosmetics, such as facial and hair treatments. There is mention in some papyrus of castor oil being prescribed to treat constipation and help pregnant women. Castor beans were found in ancient Egyptian tombs as early as 4000 BCE. Olive trees were present, though scarce, in ancient Egypt's early history, and olives were mostly imported from Syria and Palestine. Their use and cultivation remained uncommon until the mass arrival of Greek settlers during the reign of the Ptolemies, when demand increased sharply. Olive trees were normally found in the region of the Fayum and the lands surrounding Alexandria.
so this one is done, and I want to do something before I leave. To make some clicks here and there. Okay, and we'll go back. No. Okay, I want to take a few photos from each portion, and we're moving then to see what we have. Raw baby food, pre-chewed food. Oh my god. Okay. Okay, and we were here. No. And then here. Okay, we're in. And saving, and we're out. And pyramids, let's enter here. No, this way, and make a shot, and out. And then we're finishing for tonight, and I will tell you why it is some other time, because I need to collect shots from all over, and you will see why that matters. Okay, so oh my. Okay, we're moving out, and we're going, no, we're moving out, and we're going to see, to see, to see, to see this. Why am I on 50? Okay, we're moving to title. And why? I will tell you now, because I want to check something and show you that, and then we will finish for today. I'm very tired. It's not late here, but I'm working like 15-16 hours every day, so I'm that tired, and really need some sleep. um, so what I wanted to check is, what do we have here? Nothing yet. Let's check this. Okay, I'm here. Oh, I'm stuck now. Oh, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. Okay. Okay, so this I wanted to show you. This you get on first visit. Okay, can you see that? Okay, you see. So this is archaeologist. That happens when you complete daily life category. And polymorph, that's when you use 5 different characters. So I wasn't sure, am I going to make it with going through that with 5, or do I need to go through all 20 with um, 5 times, you know? But actually I need to use 5 characters to finish daily life, and that's it. So 3 achievements, and see you see you tomorrow. I'm that tired.